Mehmed has one goal the day he takes office. He is going to conquer Constantinople and make it his capital. He's that guy. And so he begins working on it from day one. That's all he thinks about. I'm going to take Constantinople. I'm going to take Constantinople. And of course, all the other European powers, even Hungary, are like, he's not going to do anything. Constantine the 11th, well, that's a lot of Constantines, who was the emperor in Constantinopolis. So I think that's a good thing to have. Constantine the 11th, it starts sending out aid requests to other European powers, like he sends a request to Venice. And Venice goes, yeah, we'll think about it. And they start debating it. And, the dukes are getting together, and they're like, I don't know, should we do this, should we not? And it's like 2 years of debating. They do finally send a fleet in April of 1453. It arrives too late. So don't hesitate too much is the lesson there. But a few ships show up. Ultimately, Venice actually did send 8 ships. The Genovese show up. They had 5 ships. There's a ship from Aragon. There's a ship from Provence. Another ship from Ancona. The Romans still had 10 ships in their navy. Mehmed II has like 200 ships. So it's not well matched. But the navy doesn't have to have a full-fledged fight because they had a massive chain. And they floated the chain on logs, and they pulled this massive chain across the Golden Horn to stop the Ottoman navy from being able to get into the Golden Horn to attack Constantinople from the north. And then they parked their 20 or so ships back behind that. 26 ships, I think they had all total. So they're seriously outmatched, but it's okay because they've got this chain. And there was no way for the Ottoman navy to breach the chain. They tried, it was too strong. So they're stuck. Anyway, in 1452, so before this, Mehmed is so serious about this that he's sitting down and talking to his guys, and he goes, I want to bring cannon. Big cannon. Really big cannon. Like 760 millimeter cannons that are 8 meters long and can lob a 600 kilogram projectile. 1.6 kilometers. I'm serious, they built this thing. Are the roads going to hold this? And of course, everybody's like, there's no way. It's going to take a team of like 400 men to pull this thing. There's no way the roads are built for this. And so for a year, he just has like 250 masons and carpenters walking around the countryside, finding all the bridges that need to be repaired and built up, and they just start building them up. And this, of course, is alarming Constantine the 11th. In the meantime, he builds a fort on the European side of the Bosporus. His grandfather had actually built a fort on the Asian side of the Bosporus. They're now aimed at each other. And he named the fort Throat Blocker. So you can see what its expressed goal with the Bosporus was. You shall not pass. So as he's doing these things, Constantine the 11th's alarm is going higher and higher, but he's got a problem. In 1054, the Eastern Church and the Western Church, the Catholic Church and the Orthodox Church, excommunicated each other in the Great Schism. In 1182, the Roman emperor decided he didn't like that there were so many Catholics living in Constantinople. It was about 1/7 Catholic. And so he actually allowed a massacre to take place, and a bunch of Venetians and Genovese were killed, and that created a lot of bad blood. In 1204, Venice gets its vengeance by conquering Constantinople and sacking the city and ruling it for seven decades. So this back and forth has set things into a place where it's going to be really hard for there to be cooperation. So at that point, Constantine the 11th is trying to figure out what he can do. One of the things he has is probably the best fortified city in human history. The walls were high and they were thick. The Romans weren't messing around when they fortified Constantinople. The coastline is fortified, the land connection is fortified, these walls are serious, and there's interior walls, so that in the event of a breach on the exterior wall, you could drop back to interior positions and fight from there. The interior walls were not built for that reason, they were just older walls, but just the fact that they existed meant that there was a backup line. And this city had been considered a city that nobody could conquer. Obviously, the Venetians did, but that's because they gained entry first and then backstabbed the Romans. Right? It was betrayal. It wasn't a true siege like what these guys are planning to do. So he knows he has that.
Welcome to this Poidea channel.
A guy shows up. His name is Orban.
In this video,
Cool. He's probably Hungarian.
Don't forget to
There's some speculation that he might not have been, but I'm going to go with he was a Hungarian. And he says, I can make you the biggest cannon the world has ever seen. He's telling this to Constantine the 11th. And Constantine goes, yeah, that'd be amazing. And Orban says, I'm calling it Basilica. It's huge. This thing's a monster. And Constantine the 11th goes, how much? And Orban tells him the number, and Constantine says, that's like more than my entire revenue for a whole year. I can't afford this. Orban goes, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. And he leaves. He goes to Mehmed II, and he says, I've got this design for this huge cannon. Like it can probably knock down really big, thick walls. Do you want to buy it? And Mehmed II goes, how much? And Orban tells him the price, and he goes, done. Get started. They begin building big cannons. There's another one called Suruka that's being built by the Turks. And then Orban's building Basilica. And their goal is they're just going to knock holes in the Constantinople walls. But then they also are going to bring about 60, 70 other cannon also. Just, it's going to take a lot of cannonballs to knock down these walls, so you want to get to grinding. So at that point, as preparations are happening, the Ottoman army in 1452 is slowly moving into place. And you can just imagine what's going on in the minds of the Romans as they're getting reports. Another unit moved closer, another unit it must have been just unnerving. Having said this, the Romans thought they had a chance. They thought they had a real chance. That wall, they thought might just be enough. And they'd been through so much for so many centuries, they thought, surely we can pull this one out.
If useful to you guys, please.
In 1453, on April 6, the Ottoman army arrives at Constantinople. They have Serbs, who are Christian. They have Greeks in their army, who are also Christian. In other words, there's this huge Christian army, or a huge portion of the army that's Christian. Their army was about 60 or so thousand men, all total. They brought in men from Anatolia. They brought in men from Bulgaria. Like, this is a huge, massive army, multi-religious, massive army. One of the groups of soldiers that they have are Bashi bazooks, which I really desperately want to call bazookies, but I've been told I'm not allowed to. The Bashi bazooks, I feel like it fits really well. Also, there's somebody named David who will really like that. So the Bashi bazooks were meant to be the crazy Turks. They were the guys who would go charging into battle, screaming at the top of their lungs. If they didn't kill anybody, it didn't matter. Their goal was to just disrupt the enemy lines. They were like the berserkers that the Vikings used, but the Turkish version of this. The Turks also had janissaries. Janissary literally meant new soldier. The Turks had changed the way soldiers fought. They had innovated and created a new type of soldier in the janissary. And they're their elite units. They're the guys that they're going to hold, right, and be careful with because they're going to need to use them at the right moment. They get into place, and they began firing on the walls with their cannon. So Orban, there's multiple accounts of this. I'm going to go with the dramatic one just because it's so exciting. Orban was apparently chained to Basilica. I'm not sure it's true, but it's just such good imagery. I feel like that account was really cool. It took 3 hours to load this monster. So they're not even part because there's a 600-kilogram stone they're trying to jam into the tube. So they're taking 6 hours to load this thing. When they would fire it, it would create so much heat that it was literally melting on the inside, and then fissures were forming. So they realized they couldn't let it cool down naturally. They needed to slow down how rapidly it cooled. So they would pour hot oil into the barrel after they fired it to let the oil keep it hot for a longer period of time to keep this thing from breaking apart, because it's literally starting to fissure. They're firing it day after day after day, and Orban is also in charge of other cannon that they're firing. But this is like his baby. Because he's in charge of other cannon, he probably wasn't actually chained to Basilica, but it's still such good imagery. Basilica, when it would fire, had a giant kickback, and it would go flying backwards. When everything worked right, sometimes it would kick to the right or the left, and it frequently was killing the cannoneers that were too close, because it would just come flying over and smack them. And so, like, men are dying firing this thing. It's this horrible thing to fire. Because it takes 3 hours to reload, the Romans just run over and repair the hole. And then they fire, make a new hole, and then the Romans go repair that hole while it's taking 3 hours to load this stupid thing. Also, it had no accuracy, so you're just lucky when it hit the wall. It was just frequently flying into the city and smashing somebody's home, which is useless. They don't need it to do that. They need it to knock the wall down. So it wasn't really great. Sometimes technology doesn't solve your problem.